Alright, let's take a look at the signal chain. Obviously there's a lot here on the big kit to process. It's a lot of mics, a lot of channels, a lot of tracks. But I'm going to approach this video as if this was just a regular sized kit, right? We're going to start with overheads and the kick, and then we'll talk about the snare drum, and then we'll do the toms, and then we'll do the deccabans, and finally the triggers. If you're interested in more about the triggers, I did make a video about triggers. If you're interested in learning more about the wave drum and the TC Helicon Nova delay, I made a video about those as well. So starting with the overheads here, you can see I have three set up right over the center of the kit. Two of those are panned left and right on a 45-degree kind of XY situation. Those are MXL 991 pencil condensers. And then I also have these old 80 CYMs here on the far sides over the larger toms and the chinas here in the back corners of the kit. And 80 CYMs. So if I was doing this on just two overhead situation, I would just take those two left and rights and I would plug them straight into the Zoom Livetrak L-20. But since I have some additional gear, I'm able to really kind of beef up the overhead sound and give a kit this wide a better treatment. So what I do is I take these three MXL 991s and I take the two 80s and they come over here into the Allen Heath Z14. I've had this board for a pretty long time and I use it for a lot of routing. It's got a lot of nice routing features and options. This is also the main interface I use with my computer. And then if I want to send the computer straight to the Livetrak, I can do that as well on that last couple of channels there, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Those operate as USB returns. But I mainly just do it through the Allen and Heath. My computer and the L20, they argue with each other sometimes. If I kick that over into that interface mode for the L20, some of my computer software doesn't like that. It has some issues. So I've just been using the Allen Heath Z14 as my interface instead. So the MXL 991s and the 80s, they come in on these channels here. My kick comes in on channel 4. And each of those receives an insert effect chain. So if we look at the MXL, the left and the right here, they get compression, EQ, and the Alex, which is a reverb. And then the center channel just gets compression and EQ. And then the 80s, they just get a compression. The kick, as you'll see, gets compression, EQ, and its own processor. So for the compression, I'm just using an old Behringer Multicom Pro. The first two channels are chained. And then the center gets the third box right there. The kick drum will get the fourth one. So again, back to the cymbals. So that left-right pair, they get their compressors and they come into the EQ, and then they come up here to the Alex, and so that's the reverb that it gets. Right now it's set to the gold plate sound, and there's a little mix level, nothing fancy. And so those are getting processed, you know, kind of together, almost kind of bussed together through the compression and the EQ, and then again the reverb. And then the 80s, you know, they only get the second compressor right here. That's this compressor here. It's also chained. And so when they come in up here to the board, they get sent to the Zoom Livetrak via the auxes. So the first one here, the MXL left, that gets sent out on aux 1. The right gets sent out on aux 2. The center gets sent out on 1 and 2 together, but less so. And you can see how they're panned here. Same thing with the 80s. They're getting panned left and right and sent on auxes 1 and 2. So auxes 1 and 2 are these, and then they come back in over here now as overhead right and overhead left. The kick, as we'll see, it gets processed a little separately. So the kick mic is an Audacity D6. I'm not going to go around to the front, but I'll put a picture up on the screen. But that's the positioning from the back. Okay, and so the D6 comes over here to the Allen and Heath, comes in on channel 4, its insert chain is going to be the compression, the EQ, and this MPX. So it receives the final compressor in that box of 4. It gets this final EQ, and then it comes down here to this MPX 100. You can see the mix levels there. The input's pretty low, the output's pretty high. The mix is fairly dry, and this is on kind of a room sound, a big chamber sound, and that's just going to add a little bit of oomph to the kick drum. And so the kick drum comes out from all of that back up here on the insert loop. It's going to be panned center, and it puts out on aux 3 post fader. Aux 3 is this orange line. It then comes into this noise reducer pedal. That effects chain right now is producing a little bit of noise, so I've got that zapped out. It then comes out on this gray line, and it comes back in here on the Zoom Livetrak L-20 as channel 5 kick mic. And then, once that channel is selected, I can add some additional reverb or something to it, EQ it, recompress it. Okay, all these signals that are coming in, they're all getting a little treatment to kind of bring them into the experience together. Alright, so next is the wave drum. And again, I made a video about the wave drum, so if you're interested in that, you can check that video out. The wave drum here outputs in a stereo pair. That's the purple and green. Okay, if I also want to output it on the headphone jack, that's this one. I'll come back to that in a minute. So the main outputs right there on the green and the purple, they come over here to the TC Electronic Nova delay. See there, the green and the purple. The output, the yellow and brown, that then is going to come to the Zoom Livetrak. Okay, right there, there's the yellow and the brown. And those are on channels 7 and 9, wave drum left, wave drum right, and with the 8-inch tom between them. So again, once the wave drum comes in, I can select that and do some additional processing and EQing and reverb and all that good stuff. But if I want to get a second signal sent straight into the room from the wave drum, I can do that a couple of different ways. So I mentioned the headphone jack here. I can output from the headphone jack, which is a copy of the volume knob, straight to this custom PA50 down here. And so that's just a little live PA in the room if I want to kick out some wave drum or triggers. So if I want just the wave drum dry, I can plug it into that. But if I want the wave drum coming out of that PA with the effects chain added to it, the Nova delay, and all of the processing on the L-20, I can also take the wave drum and assign it to one of these groups like F, and then send output F to the PA. Okay, and so the triggers can come in and go to the PA. Anything, the mics, anything that I want to reinforce live acoustically in the room can go to that little PA. Now the PA is kind of noisy, so I don't do that very often, but it is another option. Next up then we have the toms. I have 8 concert toms from Pearl on here, Pearl PTE concert toms. These are all mic'd with mics underneath them inside the shells. I'll put up some pictures of them here as I'm narrating. So all of those have their mics, and they each come over here individually on the Zoom Livetrak. You can see the 8 is on the 8, the 10 is on the 10. The 11, channel 11, gets a 13-inch timbali tom. That's the one right over the kick drum, right there, that real shallow one. And then channels 12 through 16 get their corresponding toms. So all the tom mics come in, they can be compressed and gained, and again selected and EQ'd and reverb and stuff added to them. That brings us to the deccabans. And there are 10 deccabans. They are mic'd also, at the bottom of the shell. They're not inside the shell the way that some engineers prefer. But, doing what I'm doing, they're just fine. And I'll put up some pictures again of some of those as I kind of pan back around here. So the deccabans are not recorded on the L-20, okay? Obviously I'm out of room. Eventually I think I'm going to get the Zoom Livetrak L20 version that goes into a rack mount space that you can run through an iPad or something. I might switch up and get one of those because I'd like to replace these two Korg D8-88s at some point. I've had these things a really long time. I've had hard drives replaced on them and done some other upgrades with memory and stuff. But you know, they're not going to last forever. So the two of these receive the deccabans. Up here on E, okay, the computer reads this as disk E. This one's receiving the 24-inch decaban, the 6-inch Pearl Tom, which that's small enough to kind of be a decaban, and then the 20, the 16, and the 12. That's basically all of the ones over here on the left side of the kit. Okay, the 24, that 6-inch Pearl, the 20, the 16, and the 12. Okay, so all of those go to that first Korg D8-88. I then got two empty channels on this unit, and so I can plug in a keyboard or a guitar or something if I want to do some other stuff. And then channel 8 I reserve as the mic input. So I mentioned in the studio walk around how that mic channel works with kind of the effects loop that I have in place for microphone recording. So if you want to know more about that, you can check out that video. Right now I'm using these two channels to receive the master output from the L20. Okay, I think, is that what I've got them labeled? Yeah, the left L20 and the right L20. So those will output here, and that way I can sync all of this stuff up to the L20. I have a copy of the L20 track that's being produced over here. So I can pull all that stuff into the computer and make sure everything is lined up. And I'll do the same thing with the trigger pathway over here on disk J. I'll talk about that in just a second. So real quick, one of the features of the D8-88 is you can run it in these two different modes. You have this master monitor mode and this individual mode. If it's a master monitor mode, the master output will get sent to jacks 1 through 4, and then jacks 5 through 8 become direct outputs of channels 5 through 8. If you switch it into individual mode, then all 8 of these jacks become direct outputs from their 8 channels, and that's all pre-fader. So that's kind of cool. So what I'm doing here, I'm taking this batch of deccabans pretty much to the left-hand side. Okay, and you can see how they're panned there. The 6 is panned a little bit harder across. I'm going to bring that down. The 6 should be more like that. That master of that comes out on this yellow and orange line, and that's again disk E. That's going to come in over here on the Alesis 12R on this channel right here. Same deal with the other group of deccabans. The 8-inch decaban, the 6, the 10, the 14, the 18, the 22. Okay, if we look over here, that's the 8, the 6, the 10, the 14, the 18, and finally the 22. Okay, so all of those are coming in over here, and the triggers are also being recorded here. But you notice this fader is all the way down. The triggers are not going to get sent to that main signal pathway. So I'm recording them here, but I'm not hearing them here. And there's a reason for that. But just like I can use the copy of the L20 pathway to sync up here, I can use this copy of the trigger pathway to sync down here at the bottom. So all of those deccabans are going to come out on this brown and gray pair, and that's disk J. And so disk J then comes in over here on the Alesis 12R next to disk E. So there I have my deccabans. And here also, you can see I have the triggers. So the triggers are going to two different places. And the way that works is that when they output from the Alesis DM5 brain, okay, the output from this actually goes into the Artifacts 1 processor first, and then from here, it goes into a pair of DI boxes. Okay, and so the DI box gets that signal and it outputs it in two different formats. I get the 1/4 inch output and I get the XLR output. And so one of those goes directly to the Alesis 12R, where I can monitor it, and then the other comes over here, where I can record it. And so when I'm hearing the triggers, I can bring them up or down separate from the deccabans. If I had this pushed up, then it would be folded in, and I wouldn't be able to pull them out. So that's why I have it set up that way over here. I mentioned in the DM5 segment that I can also control the triggers in real time with the volume knob right here. So if I want to pull them out, I can just turn them off completely here. And if I want to pull out the reverb, I can just pull that out as well. So that basically brings us to the end of the signal chain segment. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that answered some of the more common questions I get about how this kit is mixed and recorded. I'll close out, I guess, just with one quick final word here about bringing this stuff into the computer. So the L-20, it's recording all of this stuff as separate WAV files for every channel onto an internal card, or you can throw it into an interface mode and interface directly with your computer. Again, my computer is just kind of old, so it doesn't have that much power to run that way. So I just flip it into card mode and pull the files off of the card, and I sync them up with the same files I pull off of the D8-88s over here. These also have their own onboard 8-track recorders, and each channel actually has 8 virtual tracks, so it's really a 64-track system. So, I just pull all of those, I connect them to the computer via USB, pull all the files off, pull all the tracks off of the Zoom Livetrak L-20's card, sync all that stuff up together, and start mixing it. So that's obviously a lot of work to do. So more frequently with the YouTube channel, what I'm going to be doing is just live streaming. And so I'll be selecting, the mix that I want, and then on channel C right here, this is what I am sending to the iRig stream device. So I activate channel C, pull in a different mix. D is the mix I use for monitoring. So I'm hearing D, but the iRig stream is getting C. Okay, and so you can see I've got a splitter on C. One of those lines goes to the iRig stream back here, and the other one goes to the iRig stream over here. Okay, feeding those two cameras. So, what you may hear in the live stream videos or videos that I make here for YouTube, those are just going to be, live mixing. Nothing goes into the DAW, nothing gets mixed down. It's just that C channel right there. But if I'm doing real recording for an artist or my own projects and stuff, then, I can record everything to those channels and dump them to the computer and edit them there. So thanks for checking out this video on the signal path. Stick around for the final segment, which is going to be the close-up tour of the big kit. So I'll see you there.